All right, things are finally working out for me. I'm finally getting some time off from work, and it's time to go out and get some supplies for all these projects I've been holding back on. All right, let's go. Oh, that's not right.
At Voiding Warranties, only some of our problems are self-induced. We leave the rest to chance.
And it's worse than just any random thing being wrong. It's something wrong with my daily driver. We've got problems here. Now, before I started rolling video, I did check a couple things. Number one, will it drive down the road? The answer is yes, but barely. This is what my wife would call undrivable. I have to rev it up to about 3,000 RPM before putting it in gear. Otherwise, I stall every time. The idle's rough too. It's idling between 1,000 like it should and 3,000 RPM, and it's just wildly moving back and forth. In fact, when you put it into neutral, sometimes it'll just drop down to 0 and engine's dead. And that's not fun coming to a stop. And also, at lower loads, the power will surge. When I get it on the highway, it's not so bad, but just driving around at 45 miles an hour, city kind of stuff, it surges a little bit and bucks. And the only code I got from all of this was an O2 sensor lean code, which means nothing. It's not even misfiring. And the O2 sensor code took a couple days to set in. So if you guys have this problem and it's not that severe, you might not even have any codes. But I think I know what it is. Let's pop the hood. All right. Now, there are a handful of things that this could be. Can you see me? Yes, you can. All right, now there are a handful of things that this could be. But let's just assume that it's actually not misfiring or not misfiring yet. What could cause it to go lean? It could be a fuel injector problem. I could have some clogged fuel injectors. But if it was a fuel problem on its own, it wouldn't be something that would solve itself every few seconds. It would be something that would either be there and a problem or not. Now there are a couple things that feed the fuel management on this car. You have the mass airflow sensor. That tells it how much air is coming in and tells it how much gas to meter out. You have things like the intake air temperature, which is also part of the mass airflow sensor. You have the engine coolant temperature sensor. You have a barometric sensor that doesn't do a whole lot. And that just covers the basics of fuel management. Now, it could be a spark management issue or a spark issue, but then it would be a misfire. I want to start with the most obvious and easy to deal with first. And that's going to be this guy right here, the mass airflow sensor. Let's pull it, clean it, and see if that fixes the problem. All right, let's get that mass airflow sensor out of there. Well, it doesn't look oily or greasy or anything. Actually looks okay. Might be a little bit of oil buildup on it. Yeah, look at that. See that? Let's go ahead and pop out the air filter. It's been a while since I've cleaned that. That could be a problem. Around the fresh air intake. Oh. See, that wasn't so bad, just a complete pain in the butt. All right, now that we got it here, let's see what we got. Well, there's your problem. This air filter is completely nasty. Oh my goodness. Well, that's got to get fixed. All right, I've taken the air box apart. I've cleaned the air filter with the speed and skill of a 400-pound gorilla. And of course using proper tools like garden hose and WD-40. Get on there, get on there. All right. Let's tighten this thing down. Reconnect the vacuum line over here. If you don't reconnect this vacuum line, you'll have problems. All right, now we just gotta clean this little booger. All right, I've gotten the mass airflow sensor with some contact cleaner. Let's put it in and see if it made a difference. You know, maybe I should have cleaned all that water off the air filter before, you know, oiling it and putting it back. I could have just induced another problem, as is my way when solving problems. Tell you what, I'll drive it around, see if that actually fixes the problem, and I'll let you know. All right, I'm not gonna even bother getting out the tripod or anything like that. Here's what's happened. The car still won't run. And I've changed spark plugs, I've changed out the eccentric shaft position indicator, I've done everything I can think of other than swap the mass airflow sensor from, well, the Blue Beast, and it still won't run. And here's what I'm running into. I even disconnected the MAF and let it go into limp mode to try and see if, you know, just disconnecting the MAF would make the problem go away. That didn't make the problem go away. I've cleaned the throttle body. So I came up with something though. When I've been revving it, I've been getting in here, vroom, vroom, vroom. Rev it gently. Revs go up. Ow, that was the door against my knee. Rev it gently, revs go up. Rev it quickly, it does that. And if you don't take your foot off the pedal, it doesn't catch, it just dies. So rev it gently, you can get it up there. Hold your foot down and that happens. So now I'm thinking it's a fuel starvation issue. And now the situation has gone from bad to worse. The level in the fuel tank is above the level of the fuel pump. I didn't even know that was possible, but on this car, well, magic happens sometimes. Okay, it's not the fuel pump. Yeah, I didn't actually change it out, but in order to drain down the tank so I could get to it, I had to flow, you know, fuel out of the tank. So I decided I would use the pump to pump the fuel out of the tank. And it pumped fine into a jug, so here we are. And no, I will not describe to you the setup I used to pump fuel out of the fuel tank. It was so sketchy that, well, I'm not willing to show you guys. Honestly, I'm willing to do super sketchy things from time to time, but this is a little bit beyond what I'm willing to show on YouTube. So you'll have to put 2 and 2 together on that one. Alright guys, after a full day of troubleshooting, and I mean, I tried everything I could think of, I finally got it fixed. Now before I tell you what the actual problem was, let me go through what I actually went through to get here. New coils, plugs, wires, clean the mass airflow sensor, the air filter, went almost to replace the fuel pump, but because I had to pump down the tank and I had to use the fuel pump to do that, I counted that as a flow capacity test and the fuel pump's fine. So what was it, you're thinking? Well, at this point I was stumped. So I went to the brain trust, Rx8club.com. And I asked the question, hey guys, I've tried all this stuff, these are my symptoms, do you guys have any suggestions? And one member had a really good suggestion. Hey, why don't you try your barometric sensor? So that's what I did. Let me show you. Right here is the barometric sensor. Now, I normally don't even think about this thing. All it is a little sensor with a hose that goes nowhere. I mean, what does it do? Well, the answer is not much and a whole lot. It doesn't really do a whole lot to modify fuel, but it does go for max load for the ECU. So this little booger can tell the ECU whether you're driving at sea level, like I am most of the time, or driving in Denver or on top of Mount Everest. It tells the ECU, hey, it's reasonable for you to go up to this load because the atmospheric pressure is this much. Well, what happens when this thing fails? Well, suddenly it starts telling the ECU, hey, you're driving on top of Mount Everest. This is the highest load that you should ever see. Well, what if the ECU sees a higher load? The ECU stops measuring load past a certain point and then just keeps with whatever it was told to fuel at that load. Now, this may seem like, could be a good thing. Yeah, it could if this sensor works and if something else fails. But if this sensor fails, suddenly you're limited to 50% load or less. So when you go wide open throttle, you're limited to 50% of the fuel you'd normally get. Engine can't run on that. So, in order to figure out if this was actually the problem, I disconnected it. When I did, I got check engine code, but everything else ran great. So is this the end of the story? Am I just going to leave, a sensor on my car unplugged for the near future? Kind of. Actually, I'm going to replace it. I already have a new part on order, but it's a dealership part. I can't find one in the area, and it's a 3-hour drive to the nearest dealership. So we're just going to wait for it to come in the mail. But until then, I'm back on the road. If you've liked this episode of Voiding Warranties, click like. If you want to see more like it, click subscribe. And remember, keep on voiding warranties.